Hey guys, this is John from Beast Coast Nation, and today we're going to be talking about installing a new alternator in a 2008 Shelby Cobra Mustang. Now the first thing you're going to want to do when installing a new alternator, so that we don't ruin it in the process, is disconnect the battery. So in this car I've already disconnected the battery. There's the negative and there's the positive. Alright, just sitting here in the trunk. Reasons in the trunk of this car is because it's a drag car and it has a very large supercharger on it, and there's an overflow located now where the battery once was, which is over here. So the battery's been relocated to the trunk. So the first thing you're going to want to do after disconnecting the battery, and of course get your car in a position that you can either get under it, which I've done, which is kind of a hillbilly way in the driveway, just with some blocks, but it gets the job done. Get it in the air, and then you're going to have to find the tensioner. And the tensioner is located just to the left of the center of the engine. And there's a tensioner right there. It's hard to see. I'll try to get my camera down in there. My wrench is actually connected to it. So that chrome piece in front of you is connected to it, and there's a small extension on it. Now it would be nice if you had a torque wrench or something quite long or large that comes out like 2 or 3 feet, because then it would end up about here somewheres. And then you can easily get the leverage to get it off, or just get the tension off tensioner so you can get the belt off. But I don't have that, so I just MacGyvered a few things with a couple wrenches here. But once you get the tensioner to place, it's quite easy to get the belt out. Now when I'm standing at the front of the car, you may be in a different position. I'm turning it towards the passenger side to release the pressure off the tensioner. Then once I did that, I just pulled it off the top pulley, which was easy to access, because I didn't want to move the belt any more than I had to, so that I know exactly which way it goes back on. You could look at a diagram, but I didn't want to take the time to do that. Then after that, you see this is quite open right now. This is the shroud for the air intake. That was in there. I removed that. There's a 10mm bolt that goes right here and would go into there. And I also took the filter off, because this car is a Kenny Bell supercharger, which is quite large, and it just makes it a lot easier to get at the top bolts to remove the alternator itself. Now there's going to be 3 bolts. There's 2 on the top, and I've already loosened these, and there's 1 on the bottom as well. It'll be easier for me to show you with the new one. So the way that's positioned in the car, this is essentially where it's at, and this is the new one that's going to go in the car. There's your 2 top bolts, and there's your bottom one. This is your power supply on the bottom. On this is a 3/8, but on the old one it's actually a 10mm, so that may vary. And here's the other connection, so that actually controls it. And anyways, so that's what I can show you from up top here. And then from below, so just bear with me while I crawl under this car. Here's that 3rd bolt that I was telling you about, and I've already removed it, so I can just move this around right now. But I got the top ones just loosened because I want to pull it to the top of the car rather than drop it on my head. It's a little awkward to do it down here. And your power supply is right here. So this was the power supply, and it was connected right here with a 3/8 bolt. But I've taken that off, moved that out the way, and then there's a connection here. That's the other connection that I was showing you with the plug. It's hard to see, and so all the stuff's in your way, but I'm under the car. It's just still attached. So once you get that out, then I'm going to go up top, and I'm just going to take the rest of the bolts that are loosened out of the top, and I can remove the alternator itself. Once the alternator is removed, I can run the belt back around it, and then I'm going to have to do the opposite with the tensioner, and well, the same, I guess. I'm going to have to release the tension on the tensioner so I can get the belt back on the top of the pulley, which I showed you up top, which I originally released it from, so that I could get it off the alternator down here. So once I get that done, I'll show you how that looks. Alright, so I finally got the alternator reinstalled on the car. As I said before, I was going to try to pull it through the top of the car, like through here. And I got this all installed again, so I put my intake back in, the shroud, and the filter itself. So I was going to try to pull it up through down here. And I wasn't able to do so. It was just too tight. You could do it, but you'd have to remove a couple of the power steering lines and a couple coolant lines, and it's just more of a headache than it's worth, honestly. I didn't think I could pull it out through the bottom of the car because of how small it was, but once you play Jenga with it for a while, you can get it out, and it's hard to get the next one back in. I tried to remember how I took it out, but it will go back in. You just have to play with it a little bit. So everything's back in the car. So the 3 bolts that are tightened on the alternator to hold it in place are all snugged up. Another thing too, guys, is this car actually has 2 tensioners. I should have known that because there's 2 different belts. This belt for the supercharger itself is quite a bit thicker than this belt down here. So there's one belt and there's the next belt. So I should have realized, but the location for the second tensioner is right here, and it's not a socket setting. It's actually a 15 millimeter ratchet that you're going to need. So that's the tensioner to release the belt for the fan belt, the pulley, the water pump, and everything else. And this is the tensioner over here. It's hard to see. The other tensioner is for the larger pulley, a larger belt that goes to the supercharger. So in hindsight, I said I was going to take it out through the bottom or through the top of the car, but I ended up having to take it out through the bottom. But other than that, nothing really has changed. It's installed now. When you start the car, it no longer says check charging system. So when it was saying check charging system, it meant check the alternator. That's what I'm assuming, because the code's now gone and it hasn't reappeared since I started the car. But hopefully you liked what you've seen. Hopefully this helps somebody along the way. Let's push my little thing back down. I must have popped it out when I took this off. And if you like what you've seen, please like the video and subscribe. Have a great day.